Deep in the woods, where roads dissolve into dirt and then into nothing at all, there are cabins that seem to exist outside of time. They sit hunched beneath towering trees, roofs sagging under years of snow and rain, doors swollen shut as if trying to protect whatever secrets remain inside. No laughter echoes there anymore. No smoke rises from the chimney. Just silence thick and watchful. The kind that makes you feel like you're being studied by something older than fear itself. These are the places where people go looking for peace and instead find themselves face to face with the rawest parts of being human. Tonight you are stepping into 3 true desolate cabin in the woods horror stories, and as the darkness wraps tighter around these forgotten shelters, you will feel how thin the line is between safety and survival, between panic and strength, between breaking and becoming something stronger than you ever believed possible. The first story begins with isolation, because isolation is the sharpest knife the woods possess. It cuts away comfort, noise, reassurance, and leaves only truth behind. In northern Montana, a solo hiker planned a simple overnight stay in an old hunting cabin before continuing his journey. The cabin was barely more than a box of wood and rusted nails, but it stood against the cold, and that was enough. Winter arrived early that year, faster than forecasts predicted. Snow began falling in heavy, blinding sheets, erasing the trail within hours. By the time the sun sank behind the mountains, the cabin was no longer a stop along the way. It was a trap. As night fell, the temperature dropped so fast his breath fogged the air inside. The walls popped and groaned as the wood contracted, every sound magnified by the silence. Then came the footsteps. Slow, heavy, deliberate. They moved around the cabin, stopping near the door, then the window, then fading back into the trees, before returning again. Animal or human, he never knew. What mattered was that he was alone, truly alone, in a place where fear had room to stretch its legs. His phone showed no signal. His food was limited. The storm outside screamed like it wanted to tear the cabin apart. Fear pressed into his chest, making it hard to breathe. Thoughts raced, telling him to run, to do something, anything, even if it meant certain death in the storm. But isolation has a strange way of forcing honesty. There was no one to impress, no one to reassure him, no one to save him if he made the wrong choice. So he slowed his breathing. He stacked furniture against the door. He rationed food. He whispered prayers into the dark, not begging for rescue, but asking for calm. Each night blurred into the next, marked by the circling sounds outside and the fight to stay warm and awake. When rescuers finally reached the cabin days later, they found a man hollowed by exhaustion, yet filled with something new. He walked out of the woods changed, carrying the quiet knowledge that when everything is stripped away, he is stronger than his fear. Isolation reveals truths we spend our lives avoiding. A writer in Eastern Europe learned this lesson in a decaying cabin hidden deep within a forest that locals avoided. She sought silence to finish her work, believing solitude would be gentle. The cabin was old, its walls thick and uneven, patched with wood from different eras, as if it had been rebuilt again and again by desperate hands. On the first night, the forest seemed calm. On the second, she heard knocking from inside the walls. Not outside. Inside. Slow, rhythmic tapping that echoed through the room long after it stopped. Sleep became impossible. Every sound felt intentional, personal, aimed directly at her. Rain washed out the dirt road, cutting off escape. Alone with the knocking, fear began to poison her thoughts, whispering possibilities she didn't want to imagine. She felt the edge of panic, the pull toward losing control. Instead, she anchored herself in routine. She kept a fire burning, wrote during the day, slept in short shifts, and documented every sound. Writing became her lifeline, proof that she still existed beyond fear. When she finally left the cabin, locals told her the truth. Decades earlier, refugees had hidden within the walls during wartime, tapping signals to communicate without being heard. The sounds weren't haunting her, they were echoes of survival. What stayed with her wasn't the fear, but the realization of how close she came to letting it consume her, and how choosing steadiness saved her mind. Fear grows faster than truth in places like these. In Oregon, 2 brothers stayed in an abandoned logging cabin while scouting land for sale. The cabin stood near a ravine where sound twisted and traveled in unnatural ways. At night, strange lights drifted between the trees, and voices seemed to call out, carried on the wind. Exhausted and tense, their imaginations filled the gaps. Fear turned them against each other. Accusations replaced trust. Every noise became proof of danger. Only daylight revealed the truth. Hunters moving through the forest with lanterns, voices stretched and distorted by the ravine. The real danger that night wasn't outside. It was fear left unchecked, fear that almost destroyed the bond between them. Preparation often draws the line between horror and survival. In Alaska, a woman waited alone in a remote cabin while her partner left to gather supplies. He never returned, weather closed in, sealing her inside the wilderness. Days turned into weeks. Each night, the wind battered the cabin, and loneliness gnawed at her thoughts. But she had prepared for emergencies she never believed would happen. Extra food hidden away, knowledge of how to melt snow safely, discipline to conserve energy and hope. Fear visited her every night, whispering that rescue would never come. Preparation answered back with quiet resolve. When help finally arrived, she said the cabin taught her that hope is not blind optimism, it is readiness. Courage in the woods rarely looks heroic. It is quiet, shaking, and deeply human. A night watchman guarding a remote forest cabin once heard someone trying the door handle over and over, from midnight until dawn. The handle turned slowly, paused, then turned again. No voice, no footsteps, retreating, just the sound of someone waiting. Every instinct told him to shout, to confront, to flee. Instead, he stayed still, breathing slowly in the dark, gripping his flashlight but never turning it on. Morning came, and the forest returned to silence. Whoever was there vanished with the night. Courage didn't announce itself, it survived. Some cabins earn reputations that feed fear. In Germany's Black Forest, hikers whispered about a cursed cabin where screams echoed at night and dread filled the air. Those who stayed there reported overwhelming terror. Later investigations revealed wind funneling through hollow trees and old chimneys, producing sounds eerily similar to human cries. Nature wasn't cruel or supernatural. It was indifferent. Fear filled the silence with meaning it didn't deserve. Learning the truth transformed horror into respect, reminding people that the unknown feels monstrous only when we refuse to understand it. Panic, however, has killed more people in the wilderness than any creature ever has. A stranded camper in Canada nearly died after burning furniture recklessly inside a snowbound cabin to stay warm. Smoke filled the space, oxygen thinned, and dizziness set in. Fear rushed his decisions, turning shelter into a death trap. Only by forcing himself to stop, to think, to open vents and slow down, did he survive the night. In the woods, panic multiplies danger, while patience preserves life. Faith often becomes the strongest barrier when nothing else stands between you and the dark. A missionary hiding in a jungle cabin during regional unrest listened as armed voices passed outside throughout the night. He had no weapon, no way to escape. Fear urged him to act, to move, to do something that could have revealed his presence. Instead, he prayed quietly, steadying his breath, anchoring his thoughts. Hours passed. No one entered. Whether coincidence or divine protection, faith kept him from making fatal mistakes, holding him still when fear demanded movement. Survival leaves marks that go deeper than scars. A woman stalked near an Appalachian cabin, survived by staying inside for days, listening to footsteps and whispers outside her walls. Hunger, exhaustion, and terror tested her limits. When she finally escaped, she carried fear with her, but also sharpened instincts and a deeper gratitude for life. The cabin didn't break her, it reshaped her. She said the woods taught her that fear can either hollow you out or carve you into something stronger. Desolate cabins strip life down to its most fragile essentials. Warmth becomes priceless. Light becomes hope. Silence becomes an enemy and a teacher all at once. In those places, fear feels alive, breathing just beyond the walls. Yet these true stories reveal something deeper than horror. They show that even when comfort is gone, something unbreakable remains. Courage that whispers instead of shouts. Preparation that stands firm when optimism fails. Faith that steadies trembling hands. When people walk back out of the woods, they do not return empty-handed. They carry lessons carved into their bones. If you ever find yourself in a season that feels like a desolate cabin in the woods, where help feels distant and fear feels close enough to touch, remember that isolation is not the end of you. It is the moment when everything falls away. Stay calm when fear circles. Stay patient when the night feels endless. Stay faithful when answers don't come. May God give you strength when loneliness presses in, clarity when fear clouds your mind, and peace when darkness feels overwhelming. May every shadow you face teach you resilience. Every night endured remind you of your courage, and may you walk out of your own wilderness carrying a strength you never knew you had.